to help reduce these emissions, help us reach attainment, not by lowering the bar, but by doing the work in areas that the locals have not been granted the jurisdiction to do so. So can I count on your commitment to use regulatory authority to do just that?
Yes, Senator.
Okay, wonderful. And just a side note, as we will continue to work together, ensuring that jurisdictions like Southern California are not punished for non-attainment if it's resulting from the recent wildfires and the smoke and other emissions that have resulted from this disaster or disasters like it.
Yes, Senator, I've heard this concern from other colleagues of yours as well. We're just talking to Senator Kelly about it, as I cited the Yuma example, and he was asking about Maricopa County. It is important that we have common sense, pragmatic policies that are being pursued to address issues just like your concern.
Yeah, to your point, and I'm glad Senator Kelly brought it up, these concerns about fires and their impact, not just the short-term devastation, but the longer term when it comes to public health, when it comes to air quality, is not unique to California. I mean, California is in the news right now, but throughout the West and beyond because of our changing climate and weather patterns. You know, another important topic that we discussed in my office is not just water supply, water quality, but water affordability. Millions of Americans are struggling to keep up with their growing water bills, which have increased nearly 3 times the rate of inflation. According to the EPA, water utilities it will cost water utilities more than $1.2 trillion over the next 20 years to modernize their drinking water and wastewater infrastructure and maintain it. Water utilities, unique to other utilities, rely heavily on ratepayers to cover their costs. Federal government's share of maintaining this infrastructure has come down significantly over the years. So ratepayers are acutely feeling this pressure. And as a result, 1 in 5 households have outstanding and growing water debt. The national water affordability crisis affects both urban and rural communities. So it's not a rural versus urban, blue state versus red state. It is across the board. I shared with you the idea of replicating the LIHEAP program. We have a low-income home energy assistance program because you shouldn't have to freeze in the winter just because you may be low income. The same applies to having water. We know how fundamental water is for life and the economy. We've had a temporary water assistance program for low-income customers. Do you agree, and can we work together to make that permanent to tackle some of these challenges, including addressing the PFAS concerns that you're very familiar with?
Senator, having access to clean drinking water is something that I want to, if confirmed, to be able to do my part, and working with you and your colleagues across the entire country to deliver. Every American, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, should be able to access clean drinking water. I will follow all my obligations under the law, and to the fullest extent of the law, I would like to assist in those efforts for you to fight for your constituents, and every senator here to fight for their constituents in this respect.
So the temporary program was hugely successful, helping families in, again, red states and blue states alike. Look forward to working with you to make that program permanent.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator Moran.
Chairwoman, thank you. And thank you, Ranking Member, Mr. Vice Chairman. I'm pleased to be back and sitting here at the dais at the EPA committee. Thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you for the conversation we've had in my office. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Let me highlight a couple of things that we may not have talked about when we did visit. I want to describe the Kansas oil and gas industry to you. We are an oil and gas producing state, but our production is done by really small independent companies that produce from what we call stripper wells, which means they produce less than 15 barrels of oil a day. It's a significant component of the Kansas economy and significantly important. And in my view, this small-sized, small businessman and woman who operate oil and gas leases and explore for additional production of oil and gas, the EPA has written one-size-fits-all solutions we are not the majors, and we are stripper well producers. And I just want your commitment to work with the industry, these small producers, to find right-sized regulations for the circumstances that they're in.
Senator, I would welcome an opportunity to travel to your state to meet with them, whether it's at your office or elsewhere. I want to know about all of your priorities, including this one, but also to make sure that anyone who could provide any type of insight that can make me better informed to make better decisions, that I welcome any of those opportunities for conversations and collaboration.
I think that's a wonderful offer on your part, and I'm very grateful for it. I sometimes am reluctant to ask every nominee that comes before me, would you please come visit Kansas? And you volunteered. So I'm appreciative of that. And I would tell you, I can't imagine the excitement, the opportunity that people in that industry would see to have the capability of talking to somebody with you, like you directly in a state like Kansas. So thank you. And we'll get on your schedule, although you have to say once confirmed. So I look forward to that. In a different vein of energy production, I've created with my colleague, Senator Bozeman and others, a Sustainable Aviation Fuel Caucus. Kansas and Wichita in particular is the air capital of the world. We produce many more general aviation aircraft than anybody. We manufacture with thousands of employees working in aviation and aerospace. And I want to bring together the opportunity to bring the agricultural aspects of Kansas together with the aviation aspects and pursue the development of SAF, Sustainable Aviation Fuel. I wanted to know, I guess the question would be, we need your help in pursuing opportunities to develop the technology and any regulations that would follow that. And I suppose if you're coming to Kansas, we ought to introduce you to the people who are in the process of developing a new industry as the airline industry shifts itself from fossil fuels to, let me say that differently, from the fuels it uses today to sustainable aviation fuel produced by agricultural byproducts.
Senator, I look forward to that conversation as well.
Okay. The state revolving funds, I don't know whether anybody's asked this question before, but it'd be a mistake for me that clean water and drinking water state revolving funds are hugely important. I represent a lot of communities in which they're placed under significant requirements by the federal government, but they don't have the ratepayers. They don't have the number of users of water. It stands out to me, the small town in my home county, a town of about 80 people, have a regulation that they couldn't raise the rates on their water users sufficiently enough to pay for the regulations. And so the Clean Water and Drinking State Revolving Fund is hugely important to help small communities meet the needs. Many, if not all, want to meet those standards, want their consumer, their water purchaser, to have the cleanest, safest drinking water possible. And yet the rules are so unaffordable, they don't know where to turn. I'll work with you, and I just want to make sure that you would commit to continuing to support a robust funding.
Yes, Senator. Ultimately, the funding level will be set by Congress. It will be my responsibility to ensure that I'm doing my part to fulfill congressional intent and being good steward of tax dollars, so that I can report back to you on all sources of funding coming through the EPA. This specifically, I've heard from other colleagues of yours on this dais as a top priority of theirs, and therefore it will be a top priority of mine too.
I thank you for that. I would also add that you should need to be a voice within the administration as the budget is prepared and OMB makes decisions in support for the fund as well. It's certainly true that presidential budgets are not irrelevant, and it's useful if we start with a robust number that is beneficial to the country. Last question I'll ask is, I'm interested in what our country is doing. I'm involved in the national security aspects of my time in the Senate involves those things. Is there any role for EPA to play in the critical minerals world?
Yes, Senator. President Trump has expressed a desire of having a an energy council. He wants there to be collaboration between different agencies of different levels of jurisdiction. That involves everything from permitting reform, which is one topic actually that I heard Senator Whitehouse reference earlier in his opening remarks. I believe that it is important for agencies to be working together, regardless of whether we are the lead agency or we have a different role to play of following another agency. But I look forward to any collaboration working with other agencies to do EPA's part.
Congressman Zeldin, thank you for taking my questions and responding.
Thanks, Senator.
Thank you. Last but not least is someone who also has some big shoes to fill, as the former chairman of this committee was from the great state of Delaware. But I know that Senator Blunt Rochester is well up to the task, and we welcome her to the committee and welcome you to the questioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you so much to you and the ranking member for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be on this committee. Senator Carper and I wear different types of shoes. I wear pumps. Let me begin by expressing my gratitude, though, to the former chairman of this committee, my friend and mentor, Senator Tom Carper, for his years of faithful service, not only to this committee, but also to our nation and to saving our planet. I'm proud to be able to be a member of this esteemed committee. And Mr. Zeldin, I appreciate your visit last week. And you clearly stated in your testimony that we must ensure that we protect our environment. And in our conversation, I shared with you the rich diversity of my state, from our farmers to city dwellers to our coastal communities and our environmental justice communities, and why the EPA is such an important and great partner to our state. I've, in my time in the House, prioritized clean air, clean drinking water, affordability of those things as well. And for us, it's crucial that we have the best candidate for the EPA administrator. So in our conversation, I was really pleased also that you earnestly acknowledged that climate change is real and that you are committed. You actually affirmatively, before I even got the question out, said you committed to following the science and letting that dictate the policies of the EPA. And as I said in my home state, we feel the impact of climate every single day. And as a former member of the House, I know we talked about the similarities in our district: low-lying, vulnerable to sea level rise, and it's critical to our coastal communities. How will you direct the EPA to help these communities like ours survive the rising sea levels and extreme weather brought on by the climate crisis?
Senator, this is a topic that involves multiple agencies working together. So EPA being able to do its part is incredibly important. EPA might not have the funding that the Army Corps of Engineers is bringing to a particular project as may be authorized by Congress. The Department of Interior might be working on a particular aspect of this under its jurisdiction. The collaboration between agencies is critical. The collaboration between agencies and Congress is going to be important as well. I think it also helps for I, as if confirmed as EPA administrator, to be traveling to a state like yours to see issues firsthand on the ground, especially when they emerge on, at times, little notice, sometimes with far more notice, to be able to hear from people who have been working on these issues a long time, to be able to hear that feedback, to allow that feedback to inform my decision making, and to bring that feedback with me to Washington, D.C. when I return from those trips, which I look forward to, if invited, coming to visit your state with you.
Thank you so much. I have a couple of yes or no questions because I know time is limited. You stated that EPA's mission is to protect the health of the public and the environment. Is this still your position? Yes or no?
Yes.
Will you ensure EPA prioritizes policies that promote access to clean water? Yes or no?
Clean what, Senator?
Clean water.
Yes, Senator.
Yeah. And as you know, many rural communities have old water infrastructure and rely on well water, particularly in Delaware, which creates significant water quality issues. How will you your EPA, help these communities access effective solutions such as upgrades to stormwater infrastructure, watershed restoration, or water infiltration?
Senator, Congress has approached these issues in the past in certain creative ways. In some respects, it could be an aspect of congressionally directed spending. I've seen go to a particular community where they are able to mitigate an issue of water contamination, as we experienced in Suffolk County, where my congressional district was located and where we had multiple aspects of PFAS contamination. The first step is to be able to get access to drinking water. And even if that's providing bottled water, that's a partnership that starts with local leadership, where a state and federal government is asking, what can we do to assist? What's important is long-term mitigation. And what is so frustrating to the American public is when they see these issues lasting for 10, 20, 30 years, and the ball's never moving in the right direction. I look forward to doing my part to work with your local communities to get these issues mitigated to whatever extent I can help.
You actually brought up for me something that was personal. We have communities that did not have access to clean drinking water in our state. And so it was important for us to work on that revolving state water fund, getting that water to those communities, but also the water affordability. And Senator Padilla mentioned the work on the LIHEAP for low income for water programs. I led that charge in the House side and would love to continue working again to make this a permanent program for those families. I will yield back, and hopefully we have a second round of questions so that I can ask about soot particulate matter. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you. And this does end the first round. I would say we had full participation in the committee, which we're going to expect at every meeting, right? And I am very pleased with that. I also, in the interest of not wanting to hurt a new member of my committee, neglected to welcome Senator Moran as a new member of this committee. So, a returning, well, that's why I didn't say anything, because you're returning. In any event, I didn't want to chance those hurt feelings, since mine have been hurt all day by denigrating my mountains, but we won't get into that any longer. So we're going to go to second round, and we'll do it in the same order as the folks that were here. Before I begin my round, I would like to put into the record a January 3rd support letter from the former chairman of the Suffolk County Water Authority, which states, the EPA requires strong leadership that balances the complexities of environmental protection with the practical needs of communities across the country. Mr. Zeldin's track record on Long Island exemplifies his ability to lead with compassion, decisiveness, and a clear focus on results. He has already shown his dedication to the values that the EPA upholds, and I'm confident will continue to champion these priorities on a national scale. And I ask unanimous consent, which I'll grant myself, to enter this into the record. I would say there are always no better advocates than our local advocates who actually work with us all the time, and obviously you have a very strong constituency there. I'm going to ask quickly just a couple questions. Class 6 wells, which are used to inject carbon dioxide into deep rock formations, advancing carbon capture and storage technologies, obviously very important to my state. We provided EPA funding through the IIJA for to have the EPA grant state primacy for Class 6 wells, since they constitute a different aspect of permitting. And to date, only 3 of these states have been granted Class 6 primacy. And the EPA has 150 permit applications pending for approval. We have 3 Class 6 well projects under review, and the proposed final action granting West Virginia our state primacy was published in the Federal Register on November the 25th. This is going to be very important to us, as we had testimony last year that the North Dakota, who has primacy, was able to permit, I think, 7 wells in a short period of time, whereas the EPA, as they were trying to permit under their federal authority, it took them over many more years the time to permit just 3. So you can see how those who are closest to the situation have the ability to make good decisions. So will you prioritize the timely completion of West Virginia's Class 6 permitting process and work with me to ensure that the EPA is a resource rather than a barrier in this transition?
Yes, Senator.
Thank you. You mentioned permitting, and I was very pleased to hear Senator Whitehouse mention permitting reform. We've had lots of stops and starts over the last probably 2 to 3 years on this very issue, and it's holding up construction of critical energy, manufacturing, infrastructure, transportation, doesn't matter what kind of energy, renewable energy, pipelines, whatever. So we need to make it easier to build in America. I believe that's President Trump's vision as well, by modernizing and streamlining our environmental review and permitting processes. Congressman Zeldin, what opportunities do you see for EPA to be able to establish more efficient and predictable permitting processes, in addition to working with all of the other agencies that play a part in this vital decisions?
And Chairman Capito, that last part of your question is key for different agencies to be able to work with each other, collaborating with each other, and also for agencies to be able to collaborate with Congress on any opportunities that Congress sees to pursue permitting reform as well. As far as EPA jurisdiction goes, we see a role of the EPA, for example, as it relates to environmental impact statements. There are different issues where there will be opportunities for the EPA to follow its obligations under the law. There's a possibility that Congress might choose to make changes to the law on items that are under EPA jurisdiction. I would look forward to doing my part to make sure that the EPA is not holding up any opportunities to be able to pursue sound applications that otherwise would be and should be approved.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in the public domain, permitting reform means to certain people skirting the rules or breezing through environmental reviews without really taking them seriously or actually having them science-based, as we've talked a lot about today. That's not what permitting reform means. Permitting reforms means make these environmental clean air, clean water rules and others and other agencies work together and work so that we are getting the right result of clean air, clean water, but we're able to move forward. And so I look forward to that. Here's another West Virginia issue very quickly, and it's the Muddy Creek Restoration Project. It's 19 miles of waterways that has acid mine drainage. And West Virginia went about in coordination with the past Trump administration, and it was initially championed by the Biden administration to deliver real results in cleaning up this area of our state. It was a true win-win. The Biden administration, for some reason, which we can't figure out, flip-flopped on this, and they just started putting more burdensome, costly, and a much slower cleanup process. So you're still having your acid mine drainage while we're getting hung up here. It threatens projects like Muddy Creek and discourages other communities from pursuing similar efforts to achieve real environmental remediation and benefits. Will you commit to me, working with me in the state, to try to reverse these counterproductive changes and cut the red tape and restore this for more cost-effective, but also better environmental results?
Yes, Chairman Capito, I know how much of a priority this is. You've been outspoken on this issue. It's my commitment to work with you as soon as, if confirmed, as soon as I'm in that position. I'd welcome that opportunity.
Thank you. Senator Whitehouse.
Thank you again, Chairman. Mr. Zeldin, I have something of a life experience PhD in fossil fuel pressure politics, and they'll be coming after you hard, and they'll be feeling very entitled based on their political spending toward a Trump victory. I have two questions when you're faced with that. The first is that prominent voices in Trump world have been saying that it is important to traumatize EPA's workforce to drive them out. They've been saying that it's important to cut EPA's workforce by 2/3 or more, not just Washington, but the field, the entire organization. And they've been saying that it's important to destroy the professional civil service protections of EPA's workforce. How do you respond to those three threats?
Senator Whitehouse, as I've stated earlier, my desire, if confirmed as EPA administrator, is to increase productivity of the EPA. I want to be able to help lead this agency in a way that all of you on both sides of the aisle can be proud of, for us to be accountable and transparent. I want maximum collaboration, not just with Congress, but internally within the EPA. I've been hugely impressed with the level of talent stepping up to serve at EPA. And that is the pressure that I am feeling at this moment, is to bring out the best of EPA to make sure that we are fulfilling our mission of protecting public health and the environment.
You will not support executing on those 3 threats.
My commitment to you is exactly as I had stated, Senator Whitehouse, and I am not coming into this position with any threat. My position as I sit here is a promise, it is an obligation, and it is a commitment to do my part, to do the best job possible in leading the EPA to fulfill its mission in a way that follows its obligation under the law and is one that this committee can be proud of.
The second question that I have is that while you've made a lot of good and sound statements here today, it's one thing to say things in this environment, and it's another thing to stand by those guns when the pressure comes at you. And if you look at your past, if you look at your influence and advocacy work with American First Policy Institute and America First Works, the big donors have been pharma, the massive corporate lobby, Goldman Sachs, a Morgan Stanley fund, and a billionaire fracking CEO. We don't know who the rest of the donors are because AFPI keeps much of their donor list secret, but we do know of those. Your fellow board members at America First Works include the billionaire CEO fracker, the former CEO of the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which I view as a very significant player in the fossil fuel funded climate denial armada. The successor to that Texas Public Policy Foundation CEO, and a third individual called the Chief of Intelligence and Research at that same, in my view, climate denial front group. In your political work, you've taken nearly $300,000 from the oil and gas industry back to 2007. You've had large campaign support from Koch Incorporated, which gave a total of about $60,000 when you count up all the contributions to PACs and campaign funds. David Koch himself maxed out to you, and Koch PAC gave $20,000 to your Lee PAC. In the wake of being so surrounded with so much corporate and fossil fuel influence, I want to give you 2 opportunities. One is to answer to me now, how is it that you will be able to separate yourself from the influence of these people and these interests when they come demanding things that they think they've earned politically? And I'll also turn that into a QFR so that you can, with a little bit more basis for reflection, make a more complete answer. So with that, over to you for your response, sir.
Senator, I don't need any extra time for reflection on that one. There is no person who has ever provided any level of support to me or anyone else who has any special influence with me. When I was in the Army, I wore around my dog tags the 7 Army values. The acronym is leadership: loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. It is important for me to have always been able to approach this position with a clear conscience to make decisions that I can live with for my entire life. There is no dollar, large or small, that can influence the decisions that I make, who has access to me, and how I am ruling in my obligations under the law. Senator, I'm happy to enthusiastically answer that question on any day on the spot, and I would never need any extra amount of time of reflection.
Well, good luck standing up to these guys because they're going to come at you.
Thank you. I understand that 5-minute break would be in our best interest. Would you like to do that now, or you want to keep going?
I'll take 5, I guess. Thank you, Senator.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman.
We'll come back in 5 minutes. Accurate time. It was 12:37, it's now 12:42, so we're good. Next, we have Senator Sullivan.
Thank you,
Thank
Madam Chair. Congressman Zeldin, you're doing a great job. And your opening statement was really good. I really appreciate it. Look, there's been a lot of railing against the hydrocarbon industry. I think the facts are the hydrocarbon industry has lifted more people out of poverty, continues to do so, than any, major industry in the world is doing that. But they're also been a major contributor, never gets talked about, with regard to our leadership on global emissions. Leadership. So that, Mr. Zeldin, take a look at that chart. That's been fact-checked to death because the far left hates it. But this is what Senator Ricketts was talking about earlier, about American innovation. This is what Senator Graham was talking about earlier. There's some people who are working hard on reducing emissions, countries, and there are countries that aren't. Senator Graham mentioned China and India. He is exactly right. You never heard this from John Kerry, but the leader in the world in the last 20 years on reducing global emissions was the United States of America, okay? The bad guys, in terms of emission increases, look at China, through the roof. This is a fact. Now, I've asked some of the Biden administration, EPA officials, hey, why do you think this happened? Why do you think we're the leader? It'd be great if you said it, because we are. And they would always come back and say, let's see, EPA regs? Wrong answer. The reason this happened is because of the revolution in the production of natural gas, where we have switched to natural gas as a more cleaner burning source of energy. And when we export natural gas around the world, Ms. Zeldin, what do you think that does to global emissions?
Brings it down, Senator.
It does. And these are facts. So my colleagues, I wish my good friend Senator Whitehouse was here because, they don't like this chart because it goes against their narrative. And the narrative, that is the facts, is that when you have all the above energy, including a big mix of natural gas, you reduce global emissions. So can you commit to Senator Ricketts' point to work with us and private industry on innovation that can help power America, power our allies, produce American energy, and at the same time, lower emissions? Can you
Yes,
commit?
Senator, absolutely. American innovation has been critical, and it will be critical going into the future. That's something that President Trump has often spoke of.
Yeah.
And I believe it's also one of the reasons why we saw so much support for him in this last November's election.
In Alaska, we are working, and I've talked to President Trump about just recently, we have a very large-scale LNG project that would increase, would reduce our trade deficit by billions by exporting clean-burning Alaska natural gas to our Asian allies, get clean-burning Alaska gas to Americans, and would produce thousands of American jobs. Can I get your commitment to help us work on that large-scale LNG project, which will help continue these global emission reductions?
Senator, I'd welcome the opportunity, if confirmed, to be able to work with you on this and other issues.
Great. I have another map I want to show you. Real quick, you and I talked about this issue of leaded aviation fuel. This is a huge issue to my constituents, what we call avgas. We got it, an extension for Alaska and the FAA, given our pilot safety issues, our aviation safety issues. There was this congressman, I forget his name, from New Jersey. He tried to limit this. My view, he should be more focused on cleaning up New Jersey than worrying about aviation safety in Alaska. Can I get your commitment to work with me on this avgas issue as we discussed in my office?
Senator, as I gave you my commitment then, reiterate it here today for all your constituents to hear. We had a very long, substantive conversation on a lot of topics that you're fighting for Alaska, and I welcome the opportunity to be able to work with you on all of that.
Great, thank you. Let me give you one final map and one final question. It's a little complicated. This is the American Medical Association study on life expectancy changes in America, okay? This was from 1980 to 2014. Purple and dark blue, that's where life expectancy changes happen the most, okay? Up to 13 years. Unfortunately, see yellow, red, certain places, there was a life expectancy decrease. That's mostly the opioid epidemic. My state led this. It led it because Alaska Natives, which is where most of these communities are, over about 20% of my population, started at a real low level. Real low, lowest life expectancy. Then what happened on the North Slope, what happened out in the Aleutian Island chain, what happened in the Northwest Arctic borough, resource development happened. Oil and gas happened. Open up fisheries happened. Resource development happened, and people's lives increase on average by up to 13 years. So here's my quick issue. This is a matter of life and death in my state. And the indigenous people in particular, who I care deeply about, have benefited tremendously from resource development. President Biden comes in with his Secretary of Interior. She doesn't listen to Native people. They issued 68 executive orders to shut down resource development in my state, which is going to hurt people, hurt their life expectancy. So when we talk about all this stuff about, oh, we're against resource development, oil and gas, for my state, for my constituents, this is a matter of life and death, and it's brought gymnasiums and health clinics and water and sewer. So can I get your commitment to work with me on these issues on resource development that benefit the Native people tremendously of my state? The Biden administration is talking about, oh, environmental justice. This is environmental injustice when they shut down Alaska Native communities' opportunity to develop their resources. And, you know, their focus on minority communities, I think that's great, but they've had a big asterisk during 4 years of Biden and Secretary Holland, not for Alaska Natives. And it's an outrage. This helps my communities. And can I get your commitment to work with the Alaska Native communities, indigenous communities of my state on this issue, on the other issue you talk about, contaminated lands, water and sewer? We have communities that don't have clean water and flush toilets. I really want your help on this. We didn't get the help from the Biden administration. They talked the big game, communities of color. They didn't care about the Alaska Native communities, and I need your help on this.
Understood, Senator. You have my commitment to work with you on this.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Zeldin, I want to discuss another issue with you that's affected the Western United States significantly, especially Arizona on the Navajo Nation, and that's the issue of abandoned uranium mines. We have about 500 of them. The nation's been working to clean up these mines for decades now, but the bureaucratic process of the Superfund law has meant that very little progress has been made on this. And it contaminates water, and just the radiation itself causes cancer. One step which was taken during the last Trump administration was to establish a regional office called the Office of Mountains, Deserts, and Plains, which would focus on cutting through the bureaucracy and accelerating the cleanup of mines in the West. Senator Lummis and I introduced legislation last Congress, which passed this committee unanimously, called the Legacy Mine Cleanup Act, which would authorize the creation of the office and accelerate mine cleanup across the Western United States. So will you commit to having your team review the legislation quickly so we can then incorporate EPA's feedback before we introduce the bill this year?
Yes, Senator.
And will you commit to ensuring the issue of abandoned uranium mines remains a priority for the EPA?
Yes, Senator.
Well, thank you for that. And then one final thing I want to discuss with you is, and I know you've spoken about this during the hearing already today. I was not in the room, but my understanding is you talked about PFAS. And as we discussed in my office last week, groundwater is the backup source of drinking water for both Phoenix and Tucson. And it's in an aquifer, mostly under the city of Tucson, where Gabby and I live. And this has become more critical, this backup water supply, as the drought conditions in the West has worsened. But especially the groundwater under Tucson in those aquifers have been contaminated with growing PFAS plumes. And the city had to shut down nearly 30 groundwater wells because the water exceeded EPA's drinking water limits. And to date, the city has spent more than $71 million on remediation costs and are in negotiations with EPA Region 9, with the Air Force, with the state, with Tucson Airport, and other private parties to resolve this. And throughout this process and spanning across presidential administrations, EPA Region 9 has been a consistent partner in addressing these challenging issues. So, Mr. Zeldin, if confirmed, will you commit to working with my team and the city of Tucson to address the Tucson PFAS contamination?
Yes, Senator.
So thank you, Mr. Zeldin. Thank you for spending the time. I know this has been a long process and a long hearing. It's great seeing your family here, and look forward to having the opportunity in the committee and eventually on the floor for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Senator Ricketts.
Thank you, Chairman Capito, for having this second round of questions. I appreciate it. And Congressman Zeldin, presuming that you get confirmed to be the EPA administrator, you're going to have to work to reestablish the credibility, reestablish the trust for the EPA, and that's going to involve a process of transparency and good faith action on the EPA's part. Part of what I expect you to bring back is accountability. President Biden's EPA had a $41.5 billion with a B program to carry out EV mandates and environmental justice. How many additional dollars went to the Inspector General's office to conduct oversight over those IRA funds that went out? Zero, none. Yeah, that's a problem when you're spending that kind of dollars. Can we have your commitment that you will look into this to make sure those dollars were spent appropriately, that the process was followed properly for all those dollars, and to make sure that any dollars that were not spent appropriately, in fact, Senator Capito and I actually had a press conference on how some of these dollars were being distributed. But if they weren't being distributed, you'll work to claw back those taxpayer dollars?
Yes, Senator.
Great, thank you. We talked a little bit earlier also about the EV mandate. Part of what this IRA dollars we're supposed to be pushing is this EV mandate. Of the 147 communities in my state that are classified as cities, 99 of them don't have a single EV charger. If you're living in communities like Bloomfield, Alliance, Valentine, you're 45 minutes from the nearest charging station. And in my state, EV adoption is like 2%, when nationally it's about 7%. And of course, the current mandate that the EPA is pursuing with their emission standards was to have 2/3 of all new vehicles being sold as EVs in the year 2032. That's just clearly not realistic. And again, as we discussed, we should allow American innovation to be able to help us reduce the impact on the environment, not have the administration pick one solution that they want to push. Do you commit to rolling back these out-of-touch mandates that are costly to Americans and dangerous to our energy grid, increase our reliance on our adversaries like the People's Republic of China?
Senator, it is my obligation, if confirmed, to be following my obligations under the law. And with regards to the Administrative Procedures Act, rules, laws set out that guide the way I answer that question. I'm not allowed to prejudge outcomes going into rulemaking. To ensure that there is durability of any decision to be made at the end of the process, where my answer to that question could potentially be used against any type of a rule regulation that is made. I will tell you that I have heard concerns from you and many others in this chamber of how important it is to look at rules that are currently on the books. I don't sit before you with any type of announcement I'm able to make of any rules that are going to change upon confirmation. I will tell you that I will not prejudge outcomes. However, it is my commitment to follow my obligations under the laws set by Congress, to look at laws, decisions that have been made by the United States
¿Qué hacer después del accidente en carretera? Si está grave, pida a alguien que tome fotos. Llame a la policía, que no muevan su vehículo y vaya al hospital. Después, comuníquese con un abogado de experiencia comprobada. El abogado Joseph Malou, sirviendo a la comunidad por más de 30 años. Llame al 301-947-8998. 301-947-8998. Joseph Malou, abogado de accidentes. Para él, es personal. El abogado Joseph Malou con nosotros. Abogado, ayer salió un reporte final de algo que ocurrió aquí en Virginia y que me gustaría que usted lo comentara, porque este asunto cobró la vida de un bombero, abogado. Ocurrió en Sterling, cuando el cuerpo de bomberos respondía a un incendio donde la casa explotó.
Mira, estos casos son bien importantes porque ahorita con el invierno y el frío que tenemos, mucha gente está utilizando cosas como cargadores, ¿cómo se llama? Generadores de electricidad, que sabemos tenemos monóxido de carbono y complicaciones con eso. También vemos lugares donde la gente deja calentadores pequeños prendidos en la noche, se caen, prenden fuego. Hay tantas cosas que pueden pasar durante esta época y más que todo la fuga de gas, que mucha gente no detecta la fuga de gas. Y por ahí viene y por eso creo yo que esta casa explotó.
Pero aquí hay un problema porque una de las personas afectadas murió, abogado, es un bombero. ¿Y cómo van a manejar todo esto? Porque usted conoce de leyes de compensación laboral, ¿no?
Mira, obviamente el bombero o la familia del bombero, esposa, sus hijos y otras personas que dependían de él económicamente para sostenerse, esas personas van a tener el derecho de recibir compensación laboral. Y esto incluye padres, o sea, especialmente en la comunidad latina, esto lo veo muy a menudo, donde muere una persona que está mandando dinero para El Salvador o mandando dinero para Guatemala o Honduras, y mucha gente en nuestros países centroamericanos dependen completamente de ese dinero para mantenerse. Correcto. Y si la persona muere, ahora no puede mandar dinero, entonces compensación laboral, si él murió en el trabajo, le pagaría, aunque sean a los padres, aunque sean los tíos, aunque sean los primos. Ahora, la novia, la esposa, no tienen que estar ni casados. Si la esposa o la novia dependían de él, también tienen obviamente prioridad. Y hay una serie de prioridades, esposa y hijos primero, después familiares como padres y todo. Pero en general, cualquier persona que depende de él o dependía de él económicamente, van a recibir eso de compensación laboral. En general, es un salario del afectado que te lo dan a ti por el resto de tu vida como mujer, si te casaste con él, o la mayoría de edad de los hijos, cuando ya tengan, el más joven tenga 18 años. También Social Security les da compensación a las personas que, en el caso de una muerte. Pero la parte que tú estás interesada de hablar es negligencia, es ¿qué puedo hacer yo como bombero para demandar a la persona que causó la fuga de gas, que causó el incendio, que causó el problema? Bueno, eso es lo que nosotros en compensación laboral le llamamos una demanda de tercera parte. ¿Por qué tercera parte? Porque la primera parte es el afectado, el cliente, la víctima. La segunda parte es la compañía para la cual usted trabaja bajo la ley de compensación laboral. Pero si la causa del accidente no fue culpa de la compañía para la que usted trabajaba y no fue culpa de ningún trabajador de la misma compañía para la que usted trabajaba y no fue culpa suya, pero es culpa de otra compañía. Por ejemplo, vamos a suponer que hay una obra de construcción y en esa obra de construcción llegan a dejar mercancía y llega el camión de UPS, el café, y el camión de UPS viene a dejar una escalera. Y el camión viene y no se da cuenta que, ¿verdad? Samuel está trabajando a un lado del edificio y le pega con el carro. Ahora Samuel va al hospital y tiene cuentas médicas, no puede regresar a trabajar y ahora el resto de su vida tiene una silla de ruedas. ¿Quién va a pagar ese tipo de daño? Bueno, puede pagarlo el compensación laboral claramente porque está trabajando, pero también hay un daño acá que compensación laboral no va a pagar. Alguien que quede en silla de ruedas debe de recibir millones de dólares. Yo he tenido casos donde personas han parado en sillas de ruedas, ninguno ha recibido menos de $1 millón en
Ya.
compensación de negligencia. En compensación laboral he visto de medio millón hasta arriba. ¿Por qué? Porque compensación laboral siempre paga menos. Le paga a todo el mundo, pero
Ujú.
paga menos. Ahora, regresando al tipo de accidente de tercera parte, esta
Ya.
demanda adicional, el bombero, regresando al mismo ejemplo, podría demandar a la compañía de gas, podría demandar a los dueños de la casa, a decir, miren, ustedes sabían que había un liqueo de gas y no
Ya.
hicieron nada para reportarlo. Cualquier negligencia, ¿y qué es negligencia? Bueno, es cuando alguien hace algo
Ujú.
que una persona razonable no hubiera hecho, o alguien que no hace algo
Ya.
que una persona razonable hubiera hecho. Por ejemplo, ¿qué hubiera hecho el dueño de la casa si fuera razonable? Reportar la fuga de gas cuando detectó que olía gas, asumiendo que él detectó que había gas y lo
Ya.
encontró antes. Si no, no hay caso. Todo depende
Ok.
qué hizo el dueño de la casa. Ahora, muchas veces no es el dueño de la casa, podría ser la compañía de gas que dejaron una tubería mal puesta
Ya.
y hubo una fuga y causó
Bueno,
una
aquí
explosión.
voy a ser de abogado al diablo,
Ujú.
abogado Maluf. Aquí en esta zona metropolitana se dan este tipo de incidentes
Sí,
porque la infraestructura, incluyendo la de agua potable y alcantarillado, es antiguísima. Aquí en Washington,
es cierto.
las cañerías datan desde 1890 y algo, casi de los 1900.
Correcto.
Imagínense la tubería de gas en las mismas condiciones. Y no me diga que Virginia no tiene sitios antiguos, añejos.
Correcto.
Abogado,
Ahora, déjame entonces, Samuel, explicar un poquito acerca del
por favor.
gobierno.
Ok.
Tú estás hablando del gobierno que se encarga de mantener las calles, los desagües, las tuberías de gas, las tuberías de agua, y qué papel tienen ellos en el término de demandas. Bueno,
Correcto.
este país, antes de ser los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica, como todos saben, eran varias colonias, las 13 colonias, gente que venía de Europa, en el Mayflower y todo eso, y gente que empezó a coloniar aquí, a poner sus colonias y eventualmente se convirtieron en un estado. Pero como el país originalmente era territorio británico, estaba bajo un reinado, era una monarquía. Y en monarquías usted nunca puede demandar al gobierno, porque eso es como demandar al rey.
Ya.
Entonces, la historia nuestra en Estados Unidos, que viene de la ley inglesa, la ley de Estados Unidos, damas y caballeros, con la excepción de un estado, Nueva Orleans.
Pero porque no era territorio nacional, abogado.
Exacto, era territorio francés.
Correcto.
Y
Ya.
por eso es que ellos siguen la ley francesa, la ley civil. La ley común es lo que nosotros seguimos en Inglaterra, common law, la ley común. Y esa ley común es diferente a la ley civil que tienen, y la ley civil es unas diferentes teorías, pero al final del día, Estados Unidos tiene mucha inmunidad en leyes que vienen desde esa época, desde la época donde tú nunca podías demandar. Entonces, lo que Estados Unidos hizo, dijo, ¿sabe qué? En vez de quitar inmunidad, vamos a crear excepciones. Y en cada estado o en cada región, por ejemplo, en Prince George's County, en el condado de Prince George's y el estado de Maryland, la demanda de daños y perjuicios no puede ser por más de $400,000. Si demandas al gobierno, no puede ser por más, porque ese es el límite que la ley dice, porque el resto es inmunidad. Entonces, hay lugares en Virginia donde la inmunidad es $100,000. O sea, que lo único que te pagan por un accidente, aunque tu cliente muera, aunque quede paralítico, aunque, ¿me entiendes?, esté bien mal, lo más que te pagan son $100,000, porque ese es el límite de la excepción de inmunidad.
¿Y en Virginia, abogado?
En Virginia, lo que te digo, en Virginia a veces son 200,000, a veces son 100,000, a veces son 300. Depende si ocurre en una ciudad, depende si ocurre en un condado, depende si está bajo el control del estado. Por ejemplo, tengo un accidente ahorita muy serio donde le cayó un árbol a una persona que estaba en un parque. El parque era un parque estatal. Entonces hay ciertas leyes de inmunidad y protección a nivel estatal que yo he tenido que estudiar para poder desarrollar ese caso. Entonces todo depende del caso que tú tengas y dónde ocurre el accidente. Y más importante, quién tuvo la culpa, o sea, ¿a quién vas a demandar? Por ejemplo, las demandas en contra del correo. Correo, usted sabe, damas y caballeros, andan en carro como cualquier otro y cualquiera que anda en carro va a tener un accidente eventualmente. Las estadísticas no mienten.
Sí, señor.
Entonces, sea que es por el correo, sea que es por UPS, sea que es FedEx, muchos de estos carros, buses que están en la calle todos los días, todo el día, están tan expuestos a riesgos carreteros a diario
Ya.
que es imposible que no paren un accidente. Pero cuando usted demanda al correo, tiene que demandar al gobierno federal. No es el mismo proceso. La demanda se tiene que poner en 2 años, no en 3 años, como se pone en Washington o Maryland. En Virginia es 2 años, pero el
Ya.
gobierno federal es 2 años también, la forma SF-95, que es un proceso diferente. Hay una ley federal que provee el derecho de poder demandar y no tiene límite, eso es bueno,
Ya.
a nivel federal, pero sí tiene ciertas restricciones y procesos que tú tienes que seguir, que son diferentes de los procesos que usamos cuando demandamos al gobierno, a una compañía privada, perdón.
Abogado, compensación laboral es un tópico que usted conoce, lo mismo, obviamente con negligencia. ¿Aquí hubo negligencia en esta explosión de esta casa que cobró la vida de una persona? Porque supuestamente los dueños habían llamado a la empresa de gas para que viniera a arreglar un problema que había dejado otro trabajador anteriormente, y esto se complicó aún más.
Bueno, por supuesto, Samuel, eso sería la justificación clara para mí
¿Ya?
de poder demandarlos, es por eso. O sea, la obligación del inquilino o del dueño de la casa es llamar al departamento específico. Puede llamar al 911 si no sabe
Ya.
qué hacer, puede llamar al departamento de bomberos si hay un detector de monóxido de carbono que está sonando y
Ya.
usted no sabe qué hacer, usted llama a los bomberos y los bomberos llegan y tienen medidores de monóxido de carbono para asegurarse que está bien, que usted pueda quedarse ahí. Llama a la policía con diferentes situaciones, pero en general llama a la compañía de gas cuando hay una fuga de gas y tienen un número de emergencia y usted llama al número de emergencia y deben de responder. No responden, Samuel, va a depender cuánto tiempo pasó entre el momento en que se hizo el reporte y el momento en que la explosión ocurre. Si pasó un día, mediodía, va a ser difícil, pero si pasaron 2 o 3 días, tú ya sabes, va a caer una demanda grande y la compañía de gas probablemente tiene que contribuir. También el seguro de la casa.
Ya.
Cuando la casa hay negligencia por parte de los dueños de la casa,
Ya.
y uno puede hacer el argumento que aunque el dueño lo haya reportado, que aparentemente este problema preexistía. Otra persona que estuvo antes. Así que yo no sé cuánto tiempo estuvo ahí. Yo te digo algo. Si yo llamo a la policía, a los bomberos o llamo al departamento de gas, la
Ya.
compañía de gas, para que vengan a mi casa porque estoy oliendo, olfateando gas y no llegan, Samuel.
Oh.
Te digo algo, yo no me quedo en la casa, tengo que sacar
Ya.
a mi familia si tengo una alarma sonando o si huelo como huevo podrido,
Ya.
huevos duros,
Ya.
cuando usted huele ese olor es artificial, se lo ponen al gas para que la gente pueda olfatear el gas y darse cuenta cuando hay una fuga. El gas no tiene olor.
Ya.
El gas no tiene olor. Entonces, cuando el gas hay una fuga de gas natural y no hay este químico que le ponen,
Ya.
entonces la gente no podría detectar el olor. ¿Por qué el olor es importante? Porque honestamente, aunque es bien anticuado,
Ya.
es uno de los métodos por el cual una persona tiene la habilidad de detectar un liqueo, una fuga de gas y poder llamar a la compañía de gas y que lo puedan arreglar antes de que explote su casa.
Abogado, quisiera pasarme a otro tópico,
Ujú.
un tópico que se lo planteé yo porque me parece que no le llegó, pero se lo volví a mandar hace un
Ok.
segundo los
Ok.
datos.
Perfecto.
Abogado, le voy a contar la historia a la gente para que se entere. Ok, en el año 2020, el estado de Virginia en Richmond aprobó una ley destinada a facilitar el proceso legal de los conductores que atropellan a peatones o a ciclistas. Pero los fiscales de todo el estado han presentado cargos en virtud de la ley solo en 32 ocasiones. Estamos en el 2025, abogado. Solo en casos, y también 8 de ellos resultaron en una condena. Es un problema nacional conocido como las leyes de usuarios vulnerables en carretera, que generalmente penalizan la conducción descuidada o distraída que resulta en una lesión grave o la muerte de alguien fuera del vehículo.
Ujú.
Las leyes están destinadas a castigar a los conductores en estos escenarios que, por no conducir a exceso de velocidad, no yendo borracho no
Y
sería
aquí están las tres cosas. Si usted va corriendo a
Ya.
una velocidad alta, si usted viene borracho bajo el efecto de drogas, o si usted viene manejando tan erráticamente que cualquier persona va a tener un problema con usted. Entonces, ese tipo de actividades, y tú sabes a qué me refiero
Ya.
a la gente que maneja, se cambia de carril, se va de otro carril, le pasa al otro, le suena la bocina, le pone las luces altas, o sea, está manejando y de una forma donde usted sabe, esa persona va a estar en un accidente en cualquier momento.
Ya, y
Ahora, esa es
aquí,
la idea.
aquí viene el, como dicen ahí, la patada en el trasero. Porque esto hay que cambiarlo. El senador Adam Evan, representa la zona de Alexandria, aquí en Virginia,
Ujú.
planea presentar una ley este año que evitaría el debate sobre lo que se considera descuidado o distraído al caerle con todos los hierros, al caerle
Ajá.
a cualquier conductor que hiera gravemente o que mate a alguien en un cruce peatonal o legalmente en una carretera con hasta 1 año en prisión y una multa de $2.500. Este mismo castigo máximo que la ley de usuarios vulnerables de carretera de Estado es equivalente a conducir de manera imprudente. O sea, aquí ya
O
no
sea,
habría escape,
ya no,
abogado.
ya no hay escape. Ahí
Ya.
prácticamente cualquier accidente donde tú choques a un peatón, ¿me entiendes? ¿Por qué? Yo le digo porque, mire, los
Ya.
peatones no los ponen en la carretera bajo un helicóptero.
Ya.
Los peatones vienen caminando del lado derecho, del lado izquierdo. Pueden venir corriendo, pero se están moviendo de un lado al otro. Y si usted no está prestando atención y pues, prestándole atención a los detalles de lo que está pasando en la carretera,
Ajá.
entonces usted va a tener un accidente y va a ser su culpa porque usted es la persona que le pega al peatón. Recuérdese, el peatón
Ya.
no viene y se le tira al frente del carro y le pega al
Ya.
carro. El peatón es pegado por el vehículo y el vehículo debería de poder parar. Inclusive el vehículo Volvo, creo yo, Samuel, y tú me puedes
Ya.
corregir, pero creo que es el Volvo, tiene un sistema donde tú puedes manejar y si le vas a pegar a un peatón, el carro para
Claro,
antes de que
para.
tú pares.
Ya. Aquí viene el comentario que hizo este legislador. Hay personas que son atropelladas en los cruces peatonales o cruzan la calle y no son penalizados en absoluto.
Sí, déjame explicar eso, Samuel,
Por
porque
favor, por
en
favor.
Maryland, vamos a comenzar con el estado de Maryland, porque Maryland es el peor estado para esto.
Ya.
Si una persona va manejando y le pega a un peatón y el peatón se muere, aunque la persona venía texteando o venía distraída, no va a ir presa. Lo más que va a recibir es una multa de $500 por negligencia. Negligencia, que es un error que alguien comete, es una parte donde alguien no debió de haber hecho algo. Por ejemplo, textear y manejar al mismo tiempo.
Ya.
¿Me entiendes? No prestar atención a la carretera, estar distraído en el momento, estar mirando a otro lado. Cosas así, típicamente pasarse la luz en rojo, pasarse un alto.
Ya.
Eso típicamente es un acto de negligencia, no es suficiente bajo la ley de Maryland para llegar al nivel de lo que le llaman homicidio involuntario, que son 10 años en cárcel. Entonces, mucha gente que pierde familiares que están acostumbrados que en nuestros países latinoamericanos cualquier muerte resulta en cárcel para el que lo cometió, el que lo hizo,
Ya.
aunque no lo haya hecho intencionalmente,
Ya.
porque le llaman negligencia o homicidio culposo, cosas así, donde el castigo es pequeño, no es nada serio porque es un acto de negligencia regular. Ellos quieren cambiar esto porque la ley en Maryland es así. Virginia es un poquito mejor porque hay leyes específicas para lo que le llaman, por ejemplo, negligencia vehicular, que alguien muere, cosas
Ya.
así. Pero también necesitan tener mucho más dientes. Esta ley sobrepasaría todas las leyes en Washington y en Maryland y Virginia tuviera las leyes más protegientes o que te protegen más
Ya.
que cualquier otro estado en el área.
Ya.
Sería buenísimo porque yo creo que en términos de escoger quién tiene control en una relación como la que te estoy mencionando,
Ajá.
el que tiene control es el que viene manejando el carro, el que viene caminando, aunque el que venga caminando se pueda cruzar a media calle. Y lo hacen todo el tiempo y no pueden a veces ganar una demanda civil. Esta ley permitiría que de todos modos hayan consecuencias. Así que los choferes tienen que
hay
tener
un
mucho
ejemplo
cuidado.
aquí, abogado, que
Ujú.
dice, tengo la esperanza de que este año se apruebe este tipo de proyecto, lo dijo el señor Mike Doyle, de un grupo de defensa de seguridad la carretera conocida como Northern Virginia Families for Safe Streets. Este señor fue atropellado por un todoterreno que giraba en un cruce de peatones en Old Town Alexandria en el 2016. Sufrió una grave lesión en la cabeza.
Correcto.
Tardó 3 años en recuperarse. De lo contrario, puede ir uno ahí matando gente y recibir una multa de $250 y un castigo máximo actual en Virginia por no ceder el paso a un peatón.
Esta es la ley, esta es la ley, no es nada. La ley, especialmente cuando el afectado muere, recuérdese, cuando usted va caminando en la calle, usted anda con 150, 200 libras, comparado con el vehículo que anda entre 5,000 y 6,000 libras. De hierro.
Enorme,
de hierro. O sea, que no hay quien va a ganar. Olvídese quién tiene la culpa. Preocúpese de vivir. Y para mí esta ley es absolutamente necesaria. En Washington pasaron una ley que protege más a los peatones hace varios años. Y es una ley que te favorece cuando estás poniendo una demanda civil por daños y perjuicios. Pero no es necesariamente lo mismo. Esta ley no se enfoca en el dinero que uno puede demandar o no puede. Eso es por separado y la ley de la ley. Pero en este caso, esta ley viene a poner castigo al carro. De una manera más agresiva de lo que la ley civil puede hacerlo con dinero.
Esto puede ser algo excepcional porque no es la primera vez que se presenta, abogado. Es la segunda ocasión que podría presentarse en Richmond, en la capital estatal. Y esto traería consecuencias porque el resto de los estados vecinos podrían seguir el mismo proyecto.
Virginia, ¿sabes qué? Es el estado que va número 1 en el área metropolitana en términos de modernizar sus leyes. Por ejemplo, ahora que estamos ya a comienzo del año nuevo, es importante decirle a nuestra audiencia en Virginia que entiendan que la ley de accidentes ha cambiado dramáticamente.
Sí, señor.
Donde usted antes podía demandar y el seguro podía pagarle $30,000 si eso fue lo que el dueño del carro puso de límites, que era el límite legal mínimo. El límite legal mínimo ahora es $50,000 por persona. Eso significa que si usted está en un accidente serio y su caso vale más de $30,000, que aunque usted tenga una póliza de $30,000, el seguro tiene que pagar 50. Así que ojo a aquellas personas que están en un accidente en Virginia, porque ahora el seguro tiene que pagar más límites mucho más altos, casi el doble de lo que era antes. Entonces, hay muchos casos que la gente va al hospital, va al doctor, le dan terapia y no lo operan y ya van los $30,000. ¿Y qué pasa cuando te operan? Y ahora el caso vale $100,000, ahora el caso vale $50,000. Por eso es que necesitamos límites más altos. Y yo recomiendo a las personas que manejan y tienen carro, que chequeen qué límites tienen en el carro. Y yo le pregunto a usted, ¿usted sabe cuánto dinero está pagando al mes? Usted me va a decir que sí. Yo pago X cantidad al centavo por el seguro. Pero ¿cuánto dinero le va a pagar el seguro a usted? ¿Cuánto le va a pagar el seguro a usted? Quiero saber si usted sabe a la hora de un accidente serio. Y le puedo apostar que usted no sabe. Chequee la póliza. Cuando usted mira cuánto paga el seguro, usted dice, pero eso es para defenderme cuando yo tengo la culpa. Eso se llama liability. Yo entiendo, tiene toda la razón. Pero hay otra parte de la póliza más abajo que se llama UM, la letra U, la letra M, y eso es Uninsurance Motorist Protection, protección de personas sin seguro. ¿Qué significa eso? Que cuando usted está en un accidente, el que le pega por detrás, le pega duro, lo manda al hospital, usted tiene una fractura, le llegan las cuentas, son $20,000 de cuentas médicas, ¿quién le va a pagar el caso a usted? El carro que le pegó por detrás no tenía seguro. O el carro que le pegó se dio a la fuga. Le va a pagar su seguro. Y usted dice, no, abogado, porque entonces me va a subir a mí. Y yo le digo, no, el seguro no le puede subir porque usted está haciendo un reclamo en un accidente donde alguien le chocó, tuvo la culpa, que no fue usted, y esa persona no tenía seguro. Para eso compra el seguro, para eso paga la cuota. El seguro no le puede subir un peso. Y si usted tiene límites ahí, porque esos límites pueden ser diferentes, así que hay que chequear. ¿Usted quiere que esos límites sean de $100,000 por persona? 300,000 por grupo. ¿Y usted cree que estamos perdiendo tiempo? No, 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 no. Antier llegó un cliente nuevo a mi oficina aquí en Gatesburg, Maryland, y me trajo una póliza de $300,000. Yo le digo, wow, lo felicito, qué buena póliza. Bueno, eso la compré porque usted lo dijo en el programa. Así que la gente está escuchando y la gente está actuando. Y le digo, ahora él está en un accidente y él va a estar beneficiado mucho mejor de lo que él pudo haber sido beneficiado si él le hubieran dado la póliza de mínimos, de límites mínimos, que son 30,000. Imagínense, usted va al hospital, va al doctor, va a la terapia y su caso vale. Yo he tenido clientes que tienen 50,000 solamente de cuentas médicas y de ahí tienen un año de salario perdido.
Ya.
¿Yo
Le
no
tengo
les puedo
otra.
conseguir más de $30,000? No, eso no está bien.
Ya.
Dime, Samuel.
Sofía, que ella estaba caminando por un paso peatonal.
Ok.
Cuando una conductora que giraba a la izquierda le pasó por encima. El accidente ocurrió el 1 de febrero del año 2023. Esta doña dice que todavía vive con los efectos de la lesión cerebral traumática
No,
y
esto
con
es
el dolor
terrible.
de la espalda y la rodilla.
La gente no camina
Ya,
en la calle con un casco.
no,
La gente se pone un casco para la bicicleta, tal vez
Ya.
para la motoneta, pero en términos de un casco para andar caminando, nadie se lo
Qué
pone. Esta
terrible.
señora
Y
le
aquí
pega
viene
un carro y la tira al piso,
Ya.
la cabeza se golpea contra el piso y ahora tiene daño cerebral el resto de su vida. ¿Qué va a hacer con $30,000 de la póliza?
Exacto, abogado.
¿Qué va a hacer con eso?
La conductora se llama Rafaela Lara.
Ujú.
Dijo a la policía que solo iba a 10 millas por hora y que no tenía ninguna distracción. Simplemente
No
algo
la
le
vio.
pasó. Que no la
Y
vio.
esa es la pregunta que yo te hago.
Ya.
Usted me dice que no venía distraída, correcto. Usted me dice que venía prestando atención, correcto. Y en un momento u otro tiene a mi cliente peatón en el medio de la calle enfrente de usted,
Ah.
en el cruce peatonal. Y yo le pregunto a usted, ¿fue un helicóptero el que la puso ahí abajo?
Ya, abogado.
No, usted no venía prestando atención. Deje de decir que estaba prestando atención. Ahora, yo entiendo y te voy a dar el ejemplo
Ya.
psicológico importante y ocurre cuando una persona se pasa la luz en rojo y te juran bajo Dios y sus hijos y su familia que la luz estaba en verde.
Ya.
Eso pasa donde la gente en su mente cree que la luz estaba en rojo, en verde y estaba en rojo. Y me pasó a mí una vez, no tuve un accidente, pero sí me llegó una multa y sí fue, te lo juro, yo venía pensando en algo diferente. Yo voy manejando, no estoy viendo el celular, no estoy texteando y me paso la luz, alguien me suena la bocina, yo volteo a ver para arriba y la luz está en rojo y ¿qué estoy haciendo?
Ya.
¿Qué estoy haciendo? Entonces, a cualquier persona le puede pasar,
Se le
pero
cruzan los
obviamente
cables, hermano, por Dios.
eso, y ahora cuando alguien camina a la izquierda, cruza a la izquierda, esto es, o a la derecha, a veces cruzan encima del cruce peatonal donde hay un peatón.
Es cierto, es cierto.
Entonces,
abogado.
cuando usted va a cruzar a la derecha o si usted va a cruzar a la izquierda, asegúrese antes de cruzar de parar el carro primero y mirar si hay un cruce peatonal o si hay un peatón y después ya girar el carro. Pero no gire el carro hasta que usted ya sepa que no hay un peatón, porque estos accidentes son terribles. Uno de mis primeros casos, Samuel, en Prince George's County, la señora venía caminando con su hija, un pick-up le cruza a la derecha, ella venía en el cruce peatonal, le pega, se cae, le golpea la cabeza. La señora nunca pudo haber visto, ¿cómo se llama? Tenía que tener normal, tuvo que tener lentes oscuros el resto de su vida porque quedó con sensibilidad a la luz, a la comida, perdió el sabor. O sea, y le conseguimos casi $800,000 en una época donde no pagaban los casos muy bien. Le pagaron muy bien a ella porque, ¿me entiendes? Eso en esa época, eso fue hace más de 20 años.
Le recordamos a ustedes que el abogado Joseph Maluf tiene licencia para trabajar en Washington, Maryland y Virginia. Sí, para aquellos que nos están sintonizando, doña Lidia Quispe, gracias. En mi trabajo, como 4 años, olía a gas afuera de la calle. Siempre le dije cuando bajo de mi carro siento olor a gas. Me respondieron, ok. Recién lo arreglaron, ayer. Maricruz Carranza, saludos a Maricruz, un abrazo para usted. Gracias por acompañarnos. Y a nombre de todo el equipo, a nombre del abogado Joseph Maluf, que le recuerda que el número telefónico para cualquier llamada de accidentes con daños personales es el 301-947-8998. Es un número regional. El hombre tiene licencia para trabajar aquí en Virginia, entre paréntesis, ¿ok? Así que va a estar en muy buenas manos. Ustedes no se quedan solos. Se quedan con el equipo de JR que ya viene preparado y listo con todos los hierros para hablar de lo más importante para usted del deporte. Mientras tanto, nosotros comenzamos a recoger todos los incidentes que ocurren aquí en la mancomunidad de Virginia, para que cuando hablemos con el abogado Joseph Maloof, él nos explique qué puede hacer usted a la hora de un accidente o a la hora de un problema, ¿qué le digo? De negligencia médica, vaya, o de compensación laboral, como lo que hemos hablado acerca del bombero. Así que tenga usted una buena tarde. Repito, se quedan en muy buena compañía con JR, que ya está preparado. Nosotros, primero Dios, regresamos la próxima semana. Buena tarde, cuídese mucho, que parece que está cayendo nieve. Hasta luego.